Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're looking at for rare and valuable British coins. These old coins may look ordinary, but they're worth big money today. We'll talk about their history, design, and why collectors love them. So let's get started and see what makes these coins special. Let's take a closer look at the 1943 George VI 3p coin. At first, this coin might not seem like anything special. It's small, it's old, and the design looks pretty simple. But what if I told you this little coin could be worth up to $1,000 today? That's right, this tiny piece of metal has become a valuable collector's item, and there's a really interesting story behind it. This coin was made during a very important time in history, World War II. In 1943, Great Britain was fully involved in the war, and life was hard for many people. Resources like food, fuel, and even metal were in short supply. The government had to be careful with everything, including how coins were made. That's one of the reasons this coin is so rare and special today. On the front side of the coin, you'll see a portrait of King George VI. He was the King of the United Kingdom from 1936 to 1952. In the picture, he's facing to the left, and around his image, there are Latin words, Georgiv 6 DGBROMN Rex. This might sound confusing, but it's just a traditional way of saying George VI, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons. Back then, using Latin on coins was a common way to show respect and honor the monarchy. Now let's flip the coin over and look at the back. The design here is really beautiful. In the middle, there's a big flower called the Tudor rose, which is a famous symbol of England. On both sides of the rose, you'll see two small thistles, which represent Scotland. At the top, it says 3p, which was the coin's value, and at the bottom, it shows the year it was made, 1943. Even though the design is simple, it's full of history and meaning. So why is this coin worth so much today? Well, during World War II, metal was needed for other things like making airplanes, ships, and weapons. Because of that, not as many coins were produced, and many were melted down to reuse the metal. This means fewer of these 1943 3p coins survived over the years. That's a big reason why they're so rare now. Also, not many people thought to keep coins back then. Most people were focused on surviving the war, not collecting money. So, the coins that were saved, and are still in good condition, have become valuable to collectors. A clean coin with clear details and little wear can sell for hundreds or even up to $1,000. But this coin isn't just valuable because it's rare. It's also important because of the story it tells. It reminds us of a time when every piece of metal mattered, when people were doing everything they could to support their country. It shows us a part of history that was full of sacrifice and strength. If you ever find an old British coin and it says the 1943 with 3p on it, take a closer look. You might be holding something really special. It's more than just an old coin, it's a piece of the past that people today are still looking for. And who knows? It might even be worth some serious money. Now let's talk about the 1948 1 shilling coin from Great Britain. This is a really interesting coin with a lot of history behind it. It might look like a normal old coin, but it's actually rare and valuable, especially if it's in really good condition. Some of these coins have been sold for several $1,000s by collectors. But let's break it down in a simple way and see what makes this coin so special. The coin was made in 1948, just a few years after World War II ended. At that time, life in the United Kingdom was still very hard. People were trying to rebuild after the war. There were still shortages of food and supplies, and everything was being done to get the country back on its feet. So, coins from this time period are not just money, they're also small pieces of history. On the front of the coin, you'll see a picture of King George VI. He was the father of Queen Elizabeth II. In the picture, the king is facing left, and there's some Latin writing around the edge. It says a Georgiv 6 DGBROMN Rex, which means George VI, by the grace of God, King of all Britons. It's the same kind of writing used on many coins from that time. Now if you turn the coin over, the back design is really eye-catching. There's a strong lion standing on top of a royal crown. The lion has always been a powerful symbol of Britain. It shows pride, strength, and leadership. The crown under the lion represents the king and the royal family. Around the design, there are also more Latin words, fid def and indimp. These mean good defender of the faith and emperor of India. Even though India became independent in 1947, this coin was still using the older design with that title for a little while longer. So, what makes this coin valuable today? It's not made of gold or silver, but it's still rare. A lot of coins from that time were used every day by people. They got scratched, worn out, or even lost. Not many were saved in good condition. So if someone has one of these coins that still looks clean, with all the details visible, that coin could be worth a lot more than just 1 shilling. Sometimes, coins like this can have small mistakes, called minting errors. Maybe the design is off-center, or the lettering isn't quite right. These kinds of mistakes are very interesting to collectors and can make the coin even more valuable. But even if the coin doesn't have any errors, the year 1948 itself is important. It was a year of big changes. The world was moving on from war, and countries were starting to change and become independent. So this coin is not just a piece of metal, it's part of a bigger story. If you ever come across a 1948 1 shilling coin, don't toss it aside. Take a good look at it. Is it clean? Can you see all the details? If so, it might be worth something. But more importantly, it's a little piece of history you can hold in your hand. A reminder of the world just after the war, and of a king who led his country through tough times. Let's move on to the next coin, the 1979 5 new pence coin. This one is a bit more modern compared to the others we've talked about, but it's still considered rare and valuable by many collectors. In fact, some versions of this coin have sold for thousands of dollars. But why would a coin from 1979 be worth so much? Let's find out. First, let's look at the design. On the front of the coin, or the head's side, you'll see a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. In 1979, she was still a young queen, and this version of her portrait is very recognizable from British coins of that time. Around the edge, it says Elizabeth II DG Reg FD, which stands for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith. This was a common phrase found on most British coins during her reign. Now if you flip the coin over to the back, or the tails side, you'll see the words new pence at the top, and the number 5 at the bottom. Right in the center is a picture of a crowned thistle. The thistle is the national flower of Scotland, and it's used here as a symbol of unity in the UK. The crown above the thistle shows the connection to the royal family. The whole design is simple but elegant, and it clearly represents Britain's identity during that time. Now, here's the interesting part. In 1971, Britain changed its currency system from the old pounds, shillings, and pence to a new decimal system. That's why coins from this time say new pence, to show that they were part of this new system. But by 1982, the government stopped using the word new and simply changed it to just pence. So, coins that still have new pence written on them from the 1970s, especially ones in excellent condition, are becoming more and more collectible. So, why is the 1979 5 new pence coin valuable today? First, not many people saved these coins back then. They were everyday coins used to buy small items, candy, a newspaper, maybe a bus ticket. Most people didn't think to keep them. Because of that, finding one today that's still clean, shiny, and in perfect condition is pretty rare. Second, there have been reports of small minting errors on some 1979 5 new pence coins. That means something may have gone slightly wrong when the coin was being made, like the lettering being off-center or a small flaw in the design. These kinds of errors don't happen often, and when they do, they can make a coin much more interesting to collectors. People love rare items, and when there's a mistake involved, it makes the coin even more unique. Even without an error, if the coin is in really good condition, what collectors call uncirculated or of mint state, it can be worth a surprising amount of money. Some have sold for hundreds, and special ones have reached values around $7,000 depending on the condition and collector demand. So, if you ever come across a 1979 5 new pence coin, take a good look. Is the writing clear? Is the surface still shiny? Are there any unusual details? If so, you might just have something special in your hands. It's not just pocket change anymore, it's a part of British coin history, and maybe even a little treasure. Now let's talk about the last coin on our list, the 1968 10 new pence coin. This one is very special because it was part of a big change in the UK's money system. Even though it doesn't look old like some of the earlier coins we covered, it's still very important, and in some cases, it can be worth a lot, up to $10,000 if it's rare or has an error. Let's start with a little history. Before 1971, British money worked in a different way. There were pounds, shillings, and pence, and it was kind of confusing. So in 1971, the UK switched to a simpler system called decimalisation. That's when they started using 100 pence in a pound, just like dollars and cents in the United States. But a few years before the big change, the Royal Mint started making coins to prepare people, and that's where the 1968 10 new pence coin comes in. This coin was one of the first decimal coins ever made in Britain. It was introduced 3 years before the full change happened, so people could get used to the new money. That makes it historically important, especially for collectors who like coins from turning points in history. If you look at the front of the coin, you'll see a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. In 1968, she still looked young, and this portrait was used on British coins for many years. Around the edge of the coin, you'll see the Latin writing Elizabeth II DG Reg FD. Again, this means Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith. Now let's flip the coin over. The back of the 1968 10 new pence coin has a really detailed design. In the center, there's a lion, a strong, proud symbol of England. The lion is crowned, meaning it's connected to the royal family. Above the lion, it says new pence, and at the bottom is the number 10 to show its value. The design is bold and simple, but it carries a lot of meaning about British pride and tradition. So, why is this coin valuable today? Well, just like with the 1979 5 new pence coin, the key is in the condition and the history. Not all of these coins are worth a lot, but if you have one that's in great shape, no scratches, no wear, and all the details are still sharp, it can be very valuable. Collectors really like coins from the decimal changeover period, and the 1968 10 new pence was one of the very first. Also, there were some small changes to the coin after a few years. In 1992, the size of the 10 pence coin was reduced to make it smaller and lighter. That means the older, larger coins like the 1968 version are no longer used in everyday transactions, but they are still legal tender. More importantly, they've become collectible, especially if they were never used and have been kept in good condition all these years. Sometimes, coins like this can also have minting errors, maybe a part of the design didn't come out properly, or there's something strange about the edge. These types of errors make the coin even more rare and can increase its value a lot. That's why some special versions of this coin have been sold for thousands of dollars. So, if you ever find a 1968 10 new pence coin in your collection or at a flea market, don't ignore it. Check it carefully. Look at the details. Is it the big version? Is it in good condition? If so, you might just have a rare piece of coin history and possibly something worth much more than 10 pence. So there you have it, for old British coins that are worth more than just a few pennies today. The 1943 George VI 3 pence, the 1948 1 shilling, the 1979 5 new pence, and the 1968 10 new pence. Each one has its own story, its own design, and its own place in history. These coins might seem small, but they tell us a lot about the times they were made. Times of war, change, rebuilding, and new beginnings. And that's what makes collecting coins so exciting. It's not just about the money or the value. It's about holding a little piece of the past in your hand. You never know what you might find in an old drawer, a coin jar, or even at a yard sale. Sometimes it's just a regular coin, but other times, it could be something rare, valuable, and full of history. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. We've got more coin stories, history facts, and collecting tips coming your way. And if you have any of these coins at home, tell us in the comments, we'd love to hear about your finds. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy collecting!